I believe in living and not existing. My story today is going to be based on 3 principles that I live by. Live in the present, overcome your setbacks, and keep going. The picture that you see over here is a transformation in the 54 years that I've been on this earth. So let's begin with, would you believe it that I am 54 today, but my mountaineering journey started at nearly 47 years when I accompanied my husband to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro to tick off his bucket list because he was turning 50. And my life changed with that small yes I said on the breakfast table to him when he said, "Please come with me." What is said later is now history. We summited, came down with our hands and feet intact and in high esteem. Now the question was that a seed was born and a passion was ignited. And I set out on my journey to climb the 7 continents of the world. Came back and started looking for people who would train us to get to that point. The opportunity came just a few months later with a holiday to Sikkim. Our walk up to the Darjeeling Mountaineering Institute gave us a rude shock. We were told that we do not train anybody over 40. I had 2 choices, either to give up on my dreams or seek an alternative. And what happened was that I started researching and came across a mentor who is my friend till today to take me on this journey. 6 months later, in the thick of winter, I saw myself boarding on this rickety old bus, cold, miserable, my 12-hour journey to Manali. And those 12 days in the mountain made me realize that there was more to mountaineering than just the summit, but it was my journey. I used to be very afraid of the dark. I used to be very afraid of jumping across boulders, jumping across the stones, should I slip. But you see, whatever happens in your mind starts from here. Those 12 days changed my life forever. Not only did I summit the 14 Sisters, after that, in thick of snow, heavy backpack, but I also learned that I had to do all I had in my lifetime to get to that point. I climbed with my husband for 2 more peaks. We went to Mount Everest in Russia, the highest in Europe, and to Antarctica, the frozen continent. And we summited at -42. Another learning, because I never thought it could get so cold, ever. And my learning coming back was that for a split of a second, I took off my gloves during the summit and put them back. But that was enough to have my hands tingling for 6 months later. So every little journey and every little step in the mountain taught me something, which I started adding just like you would add on the resume, on my climbing resume. My 4th mountain was still with my husband because we thought we'll do it together. I have a teenage son now, but he was all but 8 that time. This is Mount McKinley, the highest in Alaska, North America. supposedly my 4th summit. This mountain is beautiful, but it's treacherous in the weather. And this is what I was carrying, 60 kilos on my back, 60, just like my weight, and pulling 20 on the sled. But this mountain was a disaster from the word go. Earlier in the spring, Everest expedition was called off because 16 Sherpas died in the icefall. And that was playing really heavily on my mind. I was leaving my child behind, and I didn't want to risk that, but it was all paid for and we had to go. To compound it, the expedition leader had a bone to pick with me every single day. This was a 21-day trip, and in those 21 days, we had landed at Kahiltna Glacier, which was 7,200 feet, and we were going to make our way up to 14,200, and then summit at 20,000 plus. We reached the base camp at, I think it was about 14 days. And then we moved on to the high camp, which was 17,200 feet, and we were waiting for the summit window, like we do. And in the mountains, we usually go up and come down, which is why it takes so long to acclimatize so that your body gets adjusted to it. At the high camp, we were stuck for 5 days in the tent with gale force winds and you name it, and we were short of food as well. So on the day of the summit, my body was tired. In the morning, I vomited. But we had that 1 hour when my guide said, come on, we have to go. And in 1 hour, I had to get ready and out of the tent. And because of the 5 days of weather, which was so bad, we had to hurry, but we had to go slowly because it was all snowed in. We couldn't see anything. As we were going up, we saw a guy with his hands bandaged coming down, and I remember my cold hands. And this guy had lost 3 of his fingers to frostbite. That added to my mental agony even more. And then my feet started getting cold, and it's Murphy's Law. When some things go wrong, they keep going wrong. And on the way back, I did not summit. Because my feet were so cold, I turned back, came to the high camp, and started going down. It was terrible. I got my foot stuck in the thick of snow, and I got injured. I came back to India, and this is how I was rescued from the mountain before I came back to India. Just like the sled that I was pulling, because there was no helicopter. In India, I had a knee operation and I wore this for 5 months. What happened later is anybody's guess. 2 days after my knee operation, I threw this and I said, if I'm going to depend on this, I'm not going anywhere. So the transformation of acceptance of being in the present came to my mind, and I said, if I have to get stronger, I have to depend on myself. The picture you see on the right here is a testimony of the fact that my surgeon told me, for 9 months, you're not going to be able to climb. And my guide, who thought I was a liability to the group, said, you're never going to climb again. But it was my self-belief and my thought process which made me climb Mount Aconcagua within 6 months of my knee injury, the highest I had ever been, 22,847 feet. Two years, I was busy training. I climbed a couple of 6,000-meter peaks. to train for Mount Everest. In between, I went to Kosciuszko, my 5th summit. 2017, I was just pushed into this Everest expedition because my husband had summited. He's also a mountaineer. He summited in 16. And I went with the same group of people and almost the same expedition leader. I was very happy when I saw Mount Everest at Kalapathar during the Everest base camp before I actually reached there. But everything went downhill after that. I was 50 days on the mountain in 2017. My food was not what I wanted. It was not in my control. The people that I went were not in my control. I had to just go like a flock, push, pull. 51st day, I reached Camp 3, Mount Everest, after climbing the Lhotse face, and I got terribly sick. And like how? I had to be evacuated. And this picture is the one which looks pretty sad right now. Now that I've learned from this picture that I said I'm never going to have this face again. I cried all the way down to Kathmandu. And I said, next time I go, I'm going to have things in my own control. 2018, because my permit was valid, I went back again to Everest. But what did I do during this time is a thing that I remember clearly, candidly. Number one, not only did I train like hell, I trained so much that I actually used to cry in the gym. And I said, better to cry here than to cry on the mountain. I did not want to have that face again. I wrote a journal every day. And in that journal, I wrote about my feelings, how I felt. After all, when you climb the mountains, it's about your journey internally. What your mind says, you put it to action. I connected with people who saw good in me, rather than people who did nothing else but blame or whatever. So the aura around me was positive. So when I went back in April for the second time to the base camp, I was in a different world. I went with the people that I wanted. I chose the 2 Sherpas that I wanted to climb with. My food was what I wanted, because after all, you're going to survive in the mountain with health, mental stability, and happiness. It's a journey that's worth remembering. No amount of hardship fazed me. Whether I was going on the stairs, climbing the ladders, hanging on ropes, it did not faze me, because internally my mind was so strong and I was able to overcome a lot of my thoughts, which over the last few years had begun to wear me down. This is one of the pictures where we had to climb this 3 times going and 3 times coming back before the actual summit. Mount Everest was a revelation in myself. It was a spiritual journey. I used to be meditating every single day. I did the Art of Living courses. I went to Sadhguru. I just about did everything that made me a whole person. South Col is just the last point before you actually go for the summit. And when you reach here, you know it's just a matter of time that you will persevere and you will keep going on. This was with my Indian flag, and off we went for the summit. And this is the Hillary Step. In the Hillary Step, as you might have already heard, there's a huge rock which requires humongous effort. You're hanging with Tibet on one side, Nepal on one side, and your mind in the other. After the South Col, this is the most difficult part. And what happened at that time was gale force winds came around and it was 70 miles per hour. But it was my mental grit, my self-belief, and my feeling of I can do it. And also let me tell you, before I came here to the Everest in 2018, my home was filled with Everest pictures, little stickies everywhere in the house which said, I can do it, I can do it. When I used to cross the ladders, I would recite the Gayatri Mantra. So it gave me inner power. So this 70 miles per hour gale force winds also did not deter me from reaching Mount Everest, whereby I created history at climbing at 53. Age is not a barrier to achieving anything. No matter what anyone says to you, if your belief is strong, if your thoughts are strong, then there is nothing that can deter you from your goal. You are unique and you have that inner power. Use it, because losers think of pain and winners think of the gain. But it is a long process and your perseverance will take you through. Keep going, because you have just one life and you can do it.